I call Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. New Zealand First supported this bill at the first reading on the basis that it is a statutes amendment bill with minor amendments to the several bills which are set out in it. And as part of the process that we took to this bill, we referred the entire bill to all of our caucus members and asked them to study it, to see which areas of the bill related to their portfolios. They looked at it. They studied whether there were any issues that we needed to particularly take notice of. And the feedback on it was that there were no such issues, that we were satisfied with all of the amendments in the bill, and that there was therefore no reason for us to object to anything in it. And so I indicated at that stage that we would be voting for it on the basis that it was at that stage. And I have now also looked, as we all have, at the report of the Government Administration Committee, which has made a number of relatively minor but actually quite important amendments, which New Zealand First is also happy to support. And actually 2 of them are really only amendments, and they are the one to the Employment Relations Act, which amends a new part. And the issue there is that the correction would ensure that employees are able to correctly pursue a personal grievance where their employer has not provided the employee with either notice of a cancelled shift or compensation, if notice is not given as per the employment agreement. So we have no difficulty with that and supporting. That's a genuine and well thought out amendment which the committee has made to the bill. Similarly, the amendment which the committee has made to the Protection of Personal and Property Rights Act 1988, which amends one of the clauses there relating to the witnessing of donor signatures. And I remember as a lawyer doing many of these, and it is a standard certificate, but the committee has said that they believe that adequate protection would be achieved by adopting the same formulation as in the Act, and they have recommended replacing the wording, quote, does not constitute a conflict of interest with the words, and I quote, does not constitute more than a negligible risk of conflict of interest. And that's actually much more reasonable as a certificate, because how could anyone, lawyer or not, give an absolute certification that no conflict of interest would arise? So not more than negligible is much more reasonable. For that reason, again, New Zealand First sees that as a genuine amendment to the bill and one which we can support. The other 2 recommendations of the committee were to divide off into separate bills the amendments relating to Victims' Orders Against Violent Offenders Act 2014 and the one relating to the Charities Act 2005. Those, we agree with the committee that those are amendments which should not be in this bill. We take their advice and agree with them on that. That leaves me, Mr Speaker, to move on to the 2 SOPs, which would add further amendments to the bill by adding 2 private members' bills to it. We in New Zealand First will definitely not support either of those SOPs. This is an abuse of the Statutes Amendment Bill procedure. They are not genuine amendments to which were considered or part of the original bill, and this is not the right way to go about getting private members' bills through the House. We consider that to be an abuse of procedure. It should not be happening. We will not support it on that basis alone, but there are, of course, other good reasons for not doing so. Now, Nuk Karako's bill is admittedly an extremely minor bill. In fact, so minor that it almost reaches vanishing point concerning lost property at airports. Now, it is now proposed by Mr Farfoy that this go into this bill. Well, this is a serious statutes amendment bill, and it shouldn't be there. We won't support it for that reason. Similarly, we have Stuart Smith's bill, also desperately unnoticeable in content, which is now proposed by David Seymour to go into this bill, presumably as a means of getting rid of it. Well, that again, Mr. Speaker, is actually an abuse of the procedure, and it shouldn't be happening. Now, in both cases, the members should have an opportunity to speak to their bills. They should in fact turn up and explain to this House why they have moved those as private members' bills, why it is so important that the provisions in them should take up the time of this House, why it's such good legislation that we should all vote for it. Now, we think they should do that. We want to hear what they have to say. We want to hear that justification. And we don't want to see it buried in this bill, this Statutes Amendment Bill, as just a nice, quiet way of getting rid of it or sweeping it almost under the carpet. So we won't have that. We won't have that. We want to have the debate. We want to hear what it's all about. We want to know why we should vote for or against them. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, we think that by allowing this sort of thing to happen, we'll be setting a very bad precedent, one which we do not want to see happening again. So for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, there is no possible way New Zealand First will vote in favour of either of those two SOPs. Otherwise, we have no difficulty whatsoever with the process which has been adopted for this Statutes Amendment Bill, or with the recommendations of the Government Administration Committee, which we also support. So that's our position, and it's one we're going to stick to. It's the only one we believe which is credible and proper as a way to deal with this particular bill. So we'll be voting for the bill, but against the two SOPs for those reasons.
I call Brett Hudson.
Mr. Speaker,